What's up, guys? It's your girl, Boa, and let's talk about Thomas. More specifically, let's talk about how I humanized Thomas. Welcome to the very first real episode of How I Humanized the Steam Team. Today, we're going to talk about the one, the only, number one tank engine on Sodor, Thomas the Tank Engine. Let's flash back to the beginning of March 2021. I'm not sure what date, but I know it was during March. Otherwise known as the day my alternate universe was born. I drew damn near every Season 1 Thomas character, including unnamed Railway Series engines, which I named names for. But, of course, the first engine I'd ever humanized because of this was Thomas. I'd looked on Google for inspiration for Thomas, but I found that my heart lied in making my engines historically accurate, rather than following a couple of the humanized tropes that you see with other humanized engines on Twitter, Tumblr, etc. My Thomas has a design that hails from 1915 middle-class workers, specifically railway workers. What you're seeing on screen right now is actually the very first picture of Thomas I ever drew. If you ask me, I gave him some pretty snazzy overalls. I also made him more unique by giving him a white shirt with long sleeves with red stripes from his upper arm to his forearm, just so he could have some red incorporated in his design somewhere. I would say my favorite thing about my humanized Thomas is his sour attitude that reflects his bothered personality in the earlier seasons. Of course he gets nicer, but I think the way I make him act more like an asshole kind of separates him from the other Thomas humanizations, which more so uses their own headcanons, or Thomas's modern CGI portrayal when he's generally more nicer. I believe now it's only fitting to go over every single Thomas drawing that I've ever drawn up to this point. What you're seeing now is the first humanized Thomas drawing I ever published on Twitter. It's a redraw of the scene from The Adventure Begins where Thomas goes to Edward and he's saying that he's blue just like him.
Look, Edward, look! I'm blue, just like you!
You're also number one!
I remember loving this scene so much when I'd watched The Adventure Begins for the first time, which was actually my very first exposure to a Thomas and Friends media. Well, actually, that's kind of a lie. My very first exposure to Thomas media was actually when I was around 3 to 4 years old. I stopped watching Thomas around that age when I saw a crash sequence. I don't remember what era it was. All I know is that I was 4 years old. It was 2008. It was like 5, 6 a.m. I was watching PBS Kids. I believe it was Gordon who crashed. And there was like a red stuff, and 4-year-old me thought it was blood, and I never watched Thomas again because I got really scared. Anytime I saw Thomas and Friends come on after Bob the Builder, I was just gone. I'm like, do not show me Thomas and Friends. Let me stick with Bob the Builder. No one dies in Bob the Builder. After watching the Unlucky Tugs video on Why Bubba Sucks, which was actually where I first fell down the Thomas and Friends rabbit hole. Overall, I look back on this drawing very nicely, even though I no longer use gray for the engine skin tones. And even though I no longer draw them with hats either, even though that was a very appropriate time and era for hats, I just find that I prefer my characters without hats, because I'm just not too good at drawing hats right now. Oh, and there's Edward. He's gonna be our topic for next time. This drawing of Thomas is the second one, I believe, that I ever posted to Twitter. As you can see, it was me using his gray skin tone and his actually human skin tone. And I was just drawing it to see a difference and to just show people in general what Thomas looked like. As you can see, you're beginning to see Thomas's overalls, like the suspender portion of his overalls start to get lower and lower down on his chest. You're gonna see that a lot for the later drawings. It's just the straps just keep on getting lower and lower and lower until they eventually should just be classified as suspenders. This is the drawing that I showed earlier in this video to showcase how moody my Thomas is. This is meant to be a scene in My Humanized AU. it's meant to be a parallel to when he is upset about being unable to go outside of the yard. However, instead, this Thomas is upset that he can't do as much heavy lifting as the other workers because, as you can see, he's pulling that shit with his own strength. This was early on in the AU when I was just like, huh, it's Sodor. Anything could happen on Sodor, which is kind of like what the Reverend W. Audrey envisions Sodor to be and why they have faces and why trains in Britain don't. I feel like I'm going to go back to that just because the novelty is so funny. So it's just like, Thomas might go to Britain and be like, hey guys, look what I can do. And then he tries to pull the stuff and then he finds that he can't. But he goes back to Sodor and he can pull it just fine. I think that would be hilarious. And it would just turn back to how Sodor is just kind of like a weird ass, like, it's kind of like an SCP, like, what the fuck is going on, bro? Despite having my old design for Gordon, this is probably my one of my favorite humanized drawings I've ever done. As you can probably tell, it's a redraw from Paint Pots and Queens. I just love how they look like they're just puppy dogs and they're just begging Sir Topham Hatt to give them back their work. It's so funny to me, and I love the way that I drew it. This is also at a point in time where I wanted to experiment more with drawing backgrounds, and I figured that redrawing certain screenshots of Thomas and Friends could help with me drawing backgrounds. As you can see, I did the background, you know, of the plants and the background of the bricks, and I think I did pretty well on the brick texture. It just doesn't look too realistic, but I mean, I don't necessarily go for realistic. Although, yeah, it does kind of look more cartoony when you compare it to the, I guess, more well-proportioned characters in front. But that's this picture. Not much to talk about other than the fact that it makes me laugh and I think it's funny. Yet another picture that just kind of makes me laugh and feel nice. I also really like the way I drew Thomas's floof. As you can probably tell from looking at the coloring and the way that it's drawn, I did draw this on paper first, and I do have the paper version, but it's in my folder. As you can see, I drew it based off of the many arguments that Thomas and Percy have in Season 2, and just poor Toby stuck in the middle of it. I believe that Toby's design is really the only one that works with a hat now, although Percy looks adorable with a hat too. But yeah, that's just this one. There's not much to talk about with it. If you've seen an episode of Thomas and Friends Season 2 where they're constantly bickering, you'll know what it's like. And yeah, the background, I added it in. I think the background looks nice even if it's just a brick wall. Well, now the outfits are getting a bit more interesting. So, as you can see, this outfit is a bit more unique. This is a part of my winter outfit collection for the Humanized engines. These are outfits that will be worn during humanized adaptations that take place during winter. For example, when Thomas meets Terrence and Terrence needs to dig him out the snow, or the Deputation. I actually posted a picture yesterday full of the Deputation characters in their winter outfits, and I'll show that on screen real fast. Unfortunately, we won't get to Donald and Douglas and the creation of the winter fits until parts 9 and 10 of How I Humanized the Main 12, but until then, here's a sneak peek! Overall though, I think this is a pretty set winter design, and it's different enough from his usual design that it's nice. For example, he has a slightly heavier shirt, he has a red scarf underneath, his overalls are actually higher up than they usually are, and yeah, his coat is just kind of cute, and so's his little hat. This drawing you're seeing right now literally took me a whole fucking week to finish, probably a week and a half, maybe even 2. Holy shit. it is a lot more difficult to draw 12 characters on the same page than you'd think. This is all of my humanized engines. Well, not all of them, I have way more, but this is 1 through 12 plus Toad. He's right behind Donald and Douglas. And as you can see, there's Thomas down there next to Percy, who's next to Edward, who's standing above him is Emily, then there's Duck, then Henry, then Oliver, then Gordon, then James, who's really upset that Thomas is taking the spotlight, then there's Toby, who's looking at James like he's crazy, then there's Gordon, who just doesn't look like he wants to be there, and then there's Donald and Douglas. Isn't this a fun little picture? But yeah, it took me way too long, but I'm still very proud of it though. This picture is one that similarly took me quite a bit of time, but it didn't take me a whole week to complete. This picture probably took me a couple hours at most, maybe a day. As you can see, it's meant to be a cover of a Railway series book, but humanized! It's based off the Thomas the Tank Engine book by, of course, the Reverend Wilbur Audrey. And yeah, there's not much to talk about with this one. It's just Thomas being happy and epic, even though in the book he's going to be a real asshole. And yeah, I was really proud of this, and it got a lot of notice. One thing that I did forget to mention about the last picture is that that last one and this one are meant to sort of be an homage to one of the many art styles of the children's books from the 1950s. Just a very nice, cartoony style. I love the fact that their eyes are just beads. It's very cute. And once again, Thomas is just drawn in an outfit that's more reminiscent of the drivers from the actual TV series. Now we've reached the era of the Thomas drawings where I'm just doing whatever. I've kind of left the experimentation stage, and now he's just become who he is. All of these drawings were drawn from late 2021 to 2022. And yep, now you can truly see that the story is kind of coming together. We see Thomas being a brat. We see a couple of drawings that were just drawn for fun. For example, this next drawing, which is just a reaction image of Thomas, James, and Percy, looking quite disturbed, afraid at something next to them. I don't know. Maybe you can wonder what they're looking at. As you can see, look at how low Thomas's suspenders are. Look at how curly his hair is. Look at how curly James' hair is. This drawing was based off of the Unlucky Tug's thread about how Thomas and Duck hate each other. And I just couldn't resist. The thread was too funny. Oh, and we'll get to Duck and his design and why his design is my absolute favorite. We'll get to that. This next one is just Thomas being a curious boy. I very much enjoy drawing this one. And yeah, these next few ones are just Thomas being just a happy little guy. This drawing was done at a point where I hadn't drawn Thomas that often, but there he is throwing his little hat in front of the Soda Bladers logo. That's the logo for my AU. This is one drawing that I made really early in the morning. It made it from 8 o'clock in the morning. I know this because I was drawing it in class, and I knew it was during my first period. I was just practicing how to draw these three characters, James, Thomas, and Percy, Team 516. Just practicing their hair textures and their coloring. That's all. This is just cute headshots. I remember being real proud of this one when I had drawn it. I had actually designed the miniature engines, Rex, Bert, and Mike, just to draw this one image. And I also remember being proud of it because I actually did a background pretty well. Plus, I actually drew Thomas with a hat. I was getting better at drawing hats during this time. And now I'm actually pretty good at drawing them, and I'm pretty happy about it. Haha! Never overlook a little engine! And finally, here's the latest Thomas that I have drawn. I have drawn this one today in honor for this video. And here's the speed paint. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you guys for the next How I Humanized of Edward. Bye!